everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. I believe episode 5. Yeah, episode 5. Episode 5 of the Noiseless Madman podcast. I am, of course, the Noiseless Madman, aka Ryan. I thank you once again for tuning in. So, I had a pretty eventful weekend. I hope you did too. I'm pretty sure all of us did. But before I get into this episode's topics, I just wanted to remind everybody that the best way to support this podcast, as well as everything else I create, which includes music, videos, articles, short stories, poems, a plethora of things. The best way to support all of that and to help me out is by previewing and purchasing some of my original albums. Now, of course, they're available on the site bandcamp.com. All you gotta do is go to noiselessmadman.bandcamp.com. Again, noiselessmadman.bandcamp.com. That is all one word, lowercase, no spaces, noiselessmadman.bandcamp.com. I'll say it 15,000 more times now. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it's just something that I want to put out there. And I know, obviously, the more you tell people about something, the more they're going to catch on to it. Because usually I've noticed that the first time you tell somebody about something, doesn't matter like whether you tell them to check out a certain site or look into a new band or an artist or, usually it takes them usually you got to tell them more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times even, until it kind of finally sinks in, and then they get curious enough to go and check it out. At least that's what I think. That's what I've noticed when it comes to the people that I know. So definitely, please check that out. noiselessmadman.bandcamp.com. noiselessmadman.bandcamp.com. My debut album is currently $3 for 14 tracks. And then I have a 4-track EP, which is titled Those Leaves EP. Only 4 tracks on there, $2. And then, of course, each track can be bought individually for $1. So please definitely check it out. At the very least, just preview the tracks. You can stream them right on there. And also, what's really cool is Bandcamp does have their own app that you can download for iPhone and Android as well. So definitely look into that. It's pretty cool. So yesterday I saw the movie Creed, and I wasn't really expecting much from it. Well, I didn't know what to expect. I figured, I assumed it would be like all the other Rocky movies. Even though I liked the other Rocky movies, it was just like, by the last one, because I believe the last official or unofficial, the last Rocky movie was titled Balboa. I didn't really like that one. It was all right. So for this movie, Creed, I thought it was going to be pretty much the same thing. Something like, just Rocky doing what he does best and all that. And while he does do that in this movie, Creed, the main character, of course, is the illegitimate son of Apollo Creed. And I guess it turned out that Apollo Creed had an affair with a woman that he met in Hollywood, and he passed away before she gave birth to their son. That son being Adonis Creed. Of course, later on he ends up going by the name Donnie. And eventually, when Adonis Creed is a little boy, his biological mother, she passes away from some kind of terminal illness, and which pretty much forces Adonis Creed into foster care. And from then on, he bounces around from foster home to foster home and he keeps getting into all these fights with all the other kids until eventually he winds up in juvenile detention. And at one point, the wife, or rather the widow of Apollo Creed, her name was Marianne, I believe, which in this movie is played by the actress, I want to say Felicia Rashad. Felicia Rashad, she was the one who played the mom who played Claire Huxtable on The Cosby Show. We all know that. We're all familiar with that. Obviously, if you're not, hey, you should Google that. So yeah, Felicia Rashad, she plays Marianne, the widow of Apollo Creed. She finds out about Adonis, and she finds out which detention center he's in, goes there, finds him and all that, and I guess, signs him out, and then adopts him, and then pretty much raises him as her own from then on. So then the movie shows Adonis Creed in present day, and he has a really strong passion for fighting, for boxing, just like his father did. But most of the matches he participates in take place in Tijuana, Mexico. So they're not at all legal fights. But he does it. He wins pretty much every fight. In fact, I think he does win every single fight that he participates in Tijuana, Mexico. And so he wins all this prize money. While at the same time, he also was blessed with this fancy, cushy corporate job, corporate office job. And I guess he was pretty good at it, because then he winds up getting a promotion. But then at that point, he decides that he's already so burned out from this mundane office job that he decides to quit. And of course, much to the dismay of his adopted mother, Marianne, the widow of Apollo Creed, she doesn't want him to fight. She doesn't want him to become a full-time fighter because of the fact that it killed his father and her husband, Apollo Creed. But then, of course, he doesn't listen to her and, decides to do it anyways. He tries to seek out somebody to train him in somewhere, I believe in California, around the Los Angeles area, but he's not able to find a suitable trainer. So he then decides to move to Philadelphia, and of course he seeks out the aid of Rocky Balboa. And it takes some time. Of course, at first Rocky doesn't want to train him because he keeps telling him that he's done with boxing. He's just completely done with it. He doesn't want to have anything to do with it. But eventually he comes around. He does come around, especially once he realizes that Adonis is, Apollo's only son. And so therefore, or rather, Adonis is Apollo's youngest illegitimate son. And so eventually Rocky does agree to train him and puts him through all these different drills. And, so then, of course, there's plenty of these montages, of course, just like in the other Rocky movies, except this time it's with Adonis Creed. And yeah, there's a lot of really inspirational moments throughout this movie. Definitely, even if you're not a fan of sports or boxing or, just like me, I'm not that big of a fan of boxing or sports in general. But, I don't mind watching movies about sports or any particular sport, now and then. So other than that, I normally tend to stay away from these kinds of movies, but I'm glad I watched this movie. And another thing I wanted to mention was that Sylvester Stallone, his performance in this movie, I would say, is definitely one of his best performances to date. Because I can't even think back to when, he was good in the other Rocky movies, obviously, but in this one, it's, he brings a lot more heart, a lot more emotion to it. I want to say primarily because of the fact that Rocky is getting older, and he's visibly, you can see it's notice his aging is very noticeable, and unfortunately he does end up being diagnosed with some kind of illness. I won't say exactly what, or I don't want to spoil that part if you haven't seen it yet. But I don't know, it could be because of that, because of the fact that Rocky in this movie, he's getting on in years, and he's already acquired a certain amount, even though he's not a well-educated man, he's still acquired a certain amount of wisdom, knowledge, and insight into the human condition. And in his own way, he explains it. He offers up these pearls of wisdom to Adonis, Adonis in the movie, of course, he pretty much plays a typical stubborn, iron-headed young guy who is just determined to become the best fighter that he possibly can be. And but then at the same time, the actor who plays Adonis, he gives a really good performance as well, even though at times it does seem very cliched and just a repeat of the same old thing. He still places this role pretty good, fairly well. The actor's name is Michael B. Jordan. I've seen him in other movies too, if you're not familiar with the other movies he's been in. Of course, he was in the last Fantastic Four remake, which didn't do that well. But you shouldn't judge him on that movie. Just forget the fact that he was in that movie. He's been in a lot of other good movies, most notably Fruitvale Station. Definitely look into that. But getting back to Creed, so Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed, he pulls it off very nicely. And he also struggles with the fact that he never knew his father, Apollo. So he feels abandoned, he feels let down. And of course, this comes out eventually during his interactions with Rocky. And then eventually Rocky tells him, that he should forgive his father. He should stop blaming his father. Because it's not his fault that he wasn't around, and he died unexpectedly, all that stuff. And again, Sylvester Stallone in this movie, I don't know what else to say other than he gives a really good performance, really good. He is definitely deserving of some kind of award. I would say that. So, and then of course, it all leads up to this big climactic scene at the end where Adonis participates in this big fight with this other well-known boxer, and they have a really good fight. It's a really good, definitely. It keeps you on your toes. It kept me wide awake. Normally, when it comes to actual boxing matches, I have no interest in watching, because it's pretty much every boxing match I've seen in real life damn near put me to sleep. So I don't know, but maybe it could just be me. But in this movie, the final match in this movie, it definitely keeps you awake and it keeps you paying attention, and which is good. You want that. You expect that from this kind of movie. So overall, definitely I say on a scale of one tamale to 10 tamales, I do give Creed a solid 9 tamales. So would give it 10, but just because it's not really exactly perfect, it's